Hey there, my name is Emma Freeman, and this is my interpersonal communication presentation. This presentation is focusing on a real life situation that happened to me that I experienced when I was working as a team lead in a healthcare front desk environment. I'll be walking through how I identified a training issue, how I communicated it to my colleagues, and then how that communication impacted workflow, staff confidence, and patient experience. So when I first started working for this organization, I pretty much immediately noticed that there was a lot of inconsistencies in training programs, or really the lack thereof. It was really kind of one of those situations where you show up, they show you where everything is, and then you're kind of tossed to the wind, which I knew from my previous experience that that was just not going to work. I realized that because of this, that all of the staff had varying confidence levels in their performance. And there was a lot of patient and staff frustration because they didn't know what they were doing, or there were times that the patients didn't get the type of care or support that they needed. And as a result of this ended up creating a lot of gaps in knowledge and then a bunch of uncertainty surrounding responsibilities. After observing this behavior over time, I realized that a lot of the inefficiencies that we were experiencing, like scheduling errors, workflow inefficiencies, increased patient frustration, and more, was directly tied to the lack of training. These were not isolated issues, they were patterns that were impacting staff morale and the patient experience. When I started this role, I came from previous experience in the positions that they had, and because of that experience, I was able to start as a team lead. But because I had that experience where structured training did exist, I was able to immediately notice a difference. I had seen how effective both onboarding and ongoing training was, and how it improved efficiency and the confidence of the staff and the patient's confidence in us, as well as overall patient care. And I felt as the team lead, I really feel like it was important to address this and advocate for change, especially since I knew that it could be a lot better. Okay, so as far as where the communication started to come in, the first thing that I needed to do was understand my audience. And this consisted of the three front desk staff members, the lead, which was myself, my supervisor that had very limited availability, and then one staff member that worked remote. Each staff member had different learning styles and backgrounds and different cultures, so this required some awareness and flexibility in how the message was delivered. So before anything got too serious, the first thing I did was I brought up my concerns and my observations to my supervisor, who then agreed with me and decided that we should collaborate on developing a new training initiative. So the next part of that would be to schedule a meeting with the staff that we could bring this up to them and give them opportunities to discuss it and ask questions and to bring up different reasons as to why we need to start this new training initiative, but not focus on blaming anybody. And then to also incorporate shared written materials that they can use to reference on throughout their workday. I went ahead and I used a lot of interpersonal communication strategies, like using clear language and making sure things were transparent and giving those different materials for them, and also allowing space for those questions and feedback, like I mentioned, so then we can improve clarity. And I even allowed for room for them to suggest things or allow ideas so we can adjust it, so we can cater it to that specific staff, especially since it was a new initiative. I found that having their input really helped keep them more adherent to the whole new change of the initiative. So after I went ahead and I outlined all of the different gaps so they can understand why we were introducing this initiative, I went ahead and explained what exactly the initiative entailed. And this included standardized onboarding, shared documentation, and then refreshers that were ongoing. I also clarified expectation and emphasized that consistency would be important to both the staff's confidence and the quality of care that we were providing for our patients. Progress was monitored through a lot of informal weekly check-ins and observations of daily workflows. Staff feedback really played a big role in identifying what was working and what was not, especially since supervisory involvement was fairly limited. Adjustments were made collaboratively and often in real time. Following the implementation of the training initiative, we saw improvements almost immediately in consistency and confidence. Even though not all of the issues were resolved immediately, there was a lot fewer errors and better communication among the staff. The changes that we came up with were reinforced the value of proactive interpersonal communication. Even though overall the training initiative was really effective, there was a little bit of challenges that we did end up facing. One of the biggest ones was definitely the lack of supervisory involvement. Without having that managerial enforcement, that ended up kind of creating a little bit of accountability issues. It was kind of like, if the staff didn't adhere to the initiative, what was going to be the consequence? Because without the supervisor, what could I do as the lead? It became not as important at first. But over time, that ended up going away, and they understood the importance of it. But it would have been a lot more effective if I had my supervisor's full support instead of only a little bit. There also was a little bit of resistance to the new processes, and we did have limited time for any formal training because it was such a small amount of staff, and there was a pretty large amount of patient flow that did impact the how frequent we were able to incorporate new training, and we had to come up with new scheduling methods on when people could train at what time. And then also for me, just navigating leadership while still being a peer, that required a little bit more intentional communication and adaptability from my end. Okay, so my recommendations for future improvement would definitely start with having a formalized onboarding and ongoing training programs, and then also obviously to have more clear supervisory involvement. I also think that having more regular evaluations and having structured feedback would allow training programs to evolve and remain effective. And altogether, having this would support both having the staff be retained and the outcomes for our patients. In the end, this whole situation ended up reinforcing how critical interpersonal communication is in healthcare administration. Being able to address those training gaps through proactive leadership skills not only improved the workflow at the clinic, but it also strengthened our overall team dynamic and the quality of the patient care that we were giving. And it also helped me grow personally as both a communicator and a leader.